Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to RaceFace.Pro and welcome to the Brickyard. Welcome to one of the most famous circuits in the world in its oval configuration. Welcome to Indianapolis Motor Speedway for round 3 of a iRacing GT3 Championship. My name is Stephen Koenig here at THT. Joining me in the box is the likes of Tim on the cameras and Jim, who is our flag marshal here tonight as we take on this 3.8 kilometer circuit at Indianapolis. From crazy camber all the way to hard braking zones off these incredible straights, drivers will have to fight their way around the circuit to see who's going to win. And with the last race being endurance with an 80-minute run, this time is a little bit different with a 30-minute race followed by a 45-minute feature where all the cars have to pull in the pits and change their tires. That being said, there's also going to be a reverse grid for Heat 2 as well. So we're going to be seeing a variety of drivers having to think outside the box. What do they need to do to stay ahead of the pack, and how are they going to be able to fight their way through the line? We're in for an exciting one, and once again, a massive, massive welcome to you all as we get ready to rock and roll for this race. And once again, round 3 of the series means that we have to take a look at the points because drivers have been fighting tooth and nail to stay right at the top. Plus, we have had a bit of a change in our Pro-Am driver going and being promoted to Pro, which is always exciting to go and see. So let's take a look at the points and see where everyone's sitting. Starting off with our Pro-Ams, as leading out the top is the likes of Joshua Syme with 151 points. Yesenia Bell sits on 138, only 2 points ahead of Katleko Makali, Arno Kraus, Duncan Roderick, Etienne Swart, Doe Herber in 7th place, Ben England chasing him down, Wesley Lewin, and Robbie Teens rounds out our top 10. Sean Symes, Quinton Costa, Craig Starkey, Stephen Cakebread, Dina Machai, Michael Donaldson, Eugene Berryman, Willem Pina, Matthew Luke, and Jaco Kutzer round out our 20-car entry for our Pro-Am field. And let's take a look at our pros, because this is where it gets a little bit more wild, as Steven Vessels currently leads at the top, 150 points, with George Rez chasing him down with 146. Cameron Bastos holds it in 3rd place with 138, 10 points ahead of Jean Janssen van Vuren. Malcolm Pringle holds on to that top 5. Jacques Ever sits in 6th place with Jakob van der Lith, Jason Crickers, along with Daniel Gilding, and Sergei Sarkov holds on 1 point away from Daniel Gilding in 10th position. Paul Herbert, Jarman Price fight it out for 11th and 12th. Noah Hendricks, Tim Penny, Danny Herber, WJ Wilson, along with Jan Engelbrecht, Werner Skuman, Janis Constantine, after being promoted into Pro, had his points halved, but is still 1 point off the back of Werner Skuman. So don't count him out of this. He's going to be battling out against Werner Swart. Now, as we switch over to our qualifying session, drivers will be heading out onto the circuit to see what they can do here around Indianapolis. 15 minutes to get it right, and this is for their qualifying positions for the first heat. And once they have completed the first heat of 30 minutes, they will go into a 45-minute race where we will see drivers swapped round and become a little bit more entangled in some fun. So drivers are going to be seeing what they can do to ensure that they're ready for fighting. Now, see, our timing is a little bit acting funny, so we're going to fix that up. And as drivers make their way out onto the circuit for their qualifying, and in different format fashion to what we usually have on iRacing, instead of the solo qualifying that people have gotten used to see, we've got drivers heading out onto the circuit for their main qualifying. So, at the moment, Willem Buerta in the Ford Mustang recently just got his car sorted out with a setup to try and make it work out in his favor, is going to be battling out and seeing what he can do here. It's going to be a tough time, however, and drivers are going to have to see what's going to work out in their favor. That being said, we're in for an exciting time. As I look over, we got K&H Motorsport going and saying, how's it from the sidelines? Good to see him out there. And we have got the likes of Tennis Buerta currently out on circuit with his Porsche. Cameron Bastos still sitting in the pits. but it is going to be Werner Swart along with Werner Skuman, who will hope to claw their way to the front. Our defending last season champion in the Aston Martin, the Racing Snails himself, Joshua Syme, hoping to be at the top of the Pro-Am field yet again. He's going to have a lot of hard work ahead of him, as Sean Rudolph, new to the grid, will be looking to have some fun. Wesley Lewin will be also clawing his way into the fight. So a couple of new drivers joining us here tonight and for the season. The likes of Neil Strobel coming out in the BMW for Team SBR. Will be out on the circuit ready to battle it out. And a few other names we'll run through and see on the circuit. Oh, bit of a Porsche into the wall. That being said, as we have got cars already starting to come across the line and start putting their first lap in of the race, of the qualifying, Willem Buerta hopes to lead out the top of the pros. Now, we've seen him do well previous seasons. However, last time out, it wasn't the greatest of runs for him. Even in the LMP2s, which was last week, had a little bit of a difficult time out there, finishing in 20th position, hoping that he can really turn events around, see how it goes. Cameron Bastos coming off a high from Le Mans, looks to fight it out for the podium yet again. He's going to be fighting a little bit of tooth and nail we saw last time. Werner Swart, Werner Skuman, all having a good go at him along. Now with Johannes, who's hoping to fight it out. George Reyes puts himself at the top with a 124.4. Sergei Sarkov drops himself into a beautiful second place as he gets time on the board. This track is all about patience and rhythm. The drivers are going to have to learn that very, very quickly as they're looking to make it work out in their favour. Dennis Tilding currently holding on to third place as Michael Donaldson is up into fifth. First of the Pro-Ams, and, well, putting in those incredible lap times. We did see during practice, drivers were able to get down to the 123s. Well, as so far, the closest at the moment is WJ Wilson with a 124.4. George Reyes right behind him, 0.036. I mean, that's incredibly close. And even Werner Skuman from Pandacity looks to try and join into the fray as well, as he's riding out there in the Marlboro colours. But everyone's starting to put a time on the board, get themselves lined up and ready for some fun. Jakob van Lith, unfortunately, a little bit further down than he would like. He's in 9th place at the moment, well, 8th place, as Jan Engelbrecht comes across the line and goes into 10th. Wesley Lewin, Sean Rudolph, Willem Pienaar, Neil Strobel, Dino Machai, Arno Kraus, and Steven Vessels currently round out the last of the runners at the moment. Couple of drivers still needing to put a time on the board. Jacques Ever moves himself up into 4th place. Looking to take the fight as George Reyes currently leads out the top. WJ Wilson now trying to fight out for that top spot as Werner Skuman loses out his 4th place and goes down into 5th. Michael Donaldson with a 124.5 as he continues on his climb. 21 cars so far have got a time on the board, and it is still a lot of time for drivers to really make it work out in their favor, especially here in qualifying. And remember, this is a multi-class event in terms of your pros and pro-ams all racing together. So we're going to have to see how they work out. Donaldson currently leads out the pro-ams with Wesley Lewin, Joshua Syme, Duncan Roderick, Neil Strobel loses out to Dino Machai at the moment as time still come flooding in. Jacques Ever, after racing last night in WSR, trying to fight it out with the South African competitors. We do also see the likes of Willem Pienaar out on the circuit for the teens, nuts and bolts. You can see him out there, but he's getting chased down by the Mauritian Loic Randebal. He looks to try and fight it out after having a bit of a Le Mans where contact and disaster came into play. He's hoping to change it all here at Indianapolis. So, Donaldson, fastest in Sector 1, down in Sector 2, up in Sector 3, hoping to make work in Sector 4 as we keep an eye on Jacques Ever, who tries to get a little bit more pace. Duncan Roderick, hoping to keep some pace at the moment, lying 6th in class, and will be starting 20th overall as it stands, but with Stephen Cakebrink right on the back of him. Tennis Buerta, Martin van Wyk, who's just put a time on the board and has moved himself up into the top 12 in the McLaren, and I had to back out of it, nearly into the back of Wesley Lewin's car and really had to just dive out of the way. Paul Ferber, last of the current chaps that have done their lap times. Tienes Buerta, Etienne Swart, Jaco Kutzer, and Jason Krinkers still yet to put a time on the board as they get themselves ready. This circuit not leaning into helping drivers out, especially trying to get your times in. 15 minutes is still a long time, but 123 set by George Reyes, 123.3. Werner Skuman follows through with a 123.6. WJ Wilson, 123.8. Donaldson sits in 4th place with a 124 as majority of the field continue to fight on. We will see a lot sitting in the 124, 125 mark for the mid-grid. However, 123s is definitely where you want to be in the top 5 of the running. But take a look how close the field is in their qualifying times and how far they're looking to really battle it out here at Indianapolis. Remember, this is for the first heat. This is where you want to make it work. 30 minutes is definitely not long enough to really have a long dawdle around the circuit. You want to fight and get to those top spots without losing too much time early on in the race. Otherwise, you will land up losing so much time on Indianapolis, which is so hard for overtaking. Daniel Kilding up into 5th place. Looking to fight his way through. A bit of support coming in for Werner Skuman, who currently holds on to 2nd place. And the Pandacity driver not backing down from the fight. Werner Swart, good to move up into 18th, and that's Paul Ferber, unfortunately getting all out of shape with the Mercedes. Not having an easy time out there. Put a 129.3 as his banker lap, but just not able to get a time up on the board. Tienes Buerta continues on his drive to really figure out where he can get some pace in his Porsche. At the moment, though, a couple of drivers. Yeah, Jaco Kutzer moves himself up. He's going to be happy with his time. George Reyes, once again, putting in the fastest lap time. 123.093. What a stellar lap put in by him. And he's hoping to extend the gap even further at the moment. Donaldson up into 3rd. Werner Skuman holds on to 2nd. WJ Wilson going to be coming across the line. It's good in 2nd, 3rd, and 4th sector. And moves up into 3rd place with a 123.6. Bumping Michael Donaldson down. And there's got to be quite a few other drivers that are going to do what they can. Werner Skuman, no improvement, unfortunately. Jacques Ever hoping to make a good climb up through the ladder. Is it going to be enough for 123.9? Just not able to dive himself up. Wesley Lewin with a great climb in the Lamborghini is up into 7th position. Jaco van der Lith comes across the line. He's also going and moving his way up through the order. So times rushing in faster and faster. Everyone trying to figure out what is going to be the game plan here, especially for the start of the race. A little bit of smoke up ahead of Noah Hendricks as he tries to get a lap time on the board. That's going to work out for him. Up into 9th position. Well, it goes into 6th. The Symmetric Racing team going to be quite happy about that one. George Reyes up in Sector 3, but unfortunately down in the rest of the sectors, but finding his feet at the moment. Jason Krinkers also going and getting a little bit of a climb up into 16th position. Originally was in a Mustang last season, switched over to the Aston Martin, and now continues on the drive and matched times with Loic Randebel to the T, both setting a 124.5. That is incredible to see, and also not often you get an absolute tie in times. And unfortunately, Loic Randebel was just first to get it across the line, so he will be starting in 15th at the moment. Jason trying to just find where that little bit of pace is going to come out in his favor. Loic Randebel moves up the order into 7th position behind Jacques Ever on his last lap time. Paul Ferber going and getting a time on the board. Ricky on his favor a little bit more. He's got a 31, but dropped it from a 29 to a 27. The family man not hanging around at the moment. A quick flash of lights from the SBR. BMW saying good luck, have fun, keep going. George Reyes up in Sector 3 above everyone. Can he make it work in Sector 4? Coming up to the line. Is this going to be increased? No, it's not. Last lap time was 123.9, which is matching his previous lap. Unfortunately, just couldn't quite figure out the pace needed to make it work out in his favor. So drivers still trying to figure out at the moment. Tennis Buerta hasn't put a time on the board. Our 32nd driver going to be missing out on qualifying, and a lot of hard work needed to claw his way back in through the order. WJ Wilson trying to put a time on the board to get his way up. Unfortunately, unable to do so. Heures is going and moving up and moving and shaking. First sector, second sector, and third sector all good. Gets a time on the board, 125.4 up to 28th position, 12th in class. Looking to make it work out in his order. Loic Randall, unfortunately, not going to have a good time as he wasn't able to improve. Cameron Bastos, unable to improve. Paul Herbert going and coming across the line, does improve. Gets a 125.8 in his Mercedes, finding his feet around the circuit and going and stretching lap. Unfortunately, a lot of the other drivers unable to improve as it stands. Quite busy out on the circuit. Joshua Syme comes across the line and is still hanging that 123.09 as his best, and currently holds on to the 20th position. So not going and improving his times, but is still keeping the momentum up as it stands. Jaco Kutzer comes across the line as he looks to try and step up the pace as well in his mighty BMW. I'm hoping that it's going to work out in his favor, but so far, George Reis, the man to beat, the W2W driver that has been extremely dominant this season, needs to try and figure out just that little bit more pace to work out for him. Where can he find the drive to really claw his way up through the order? Steven Vessels, currently the CSA driver that leads the championship, needs to try and find a little bit more time. Unfortunately, not going to work out now. Pulls over to the side and calls it quits. Not going to be a good start for him, but is going to hope that he can get the jump off the line. WJ Wilson lining up next to Sharks Ever as it stands. As Michael Donaldson trying to improve, but Daniel Gilding comes across the line. Great time on the board for him. A 123.6 as he nails it through, gets into 6th place, and he's going to be quite happy with that one, pushing Donaldson and Bastos down a little bit further in qualifying. Sergei Sarkov out there in the Aston Martin, trying to battle his way through to get back into the top 10 and see if he can close up. Has got Noah Hendricks to beat with that 124.07. They match times as they best well beat that. Jason Krenkers comes across the line and really stamps his authority. The German, not backing down from the fight, has now moved himself up into the top 10 with a beautiful 124.06 and is just off Loic Randall's 123.95. So still putting times out on the board. Not much time left as we got 10 seconds left of our qualifying. The drivers are going to have to get comfy with this. Otherwise, those that are still out on a lap can possibly put a time on the board that works out there. Cameron Bastos hoping to make it work. Down in the 3rd sector, unfortunately didn't cross the line to make it work out in his favor. So, drivers, done, dusted, and look forward to heat 1 of round 3 here at the RaceFace.Pro iRacing GT3 Championship. George Reis looks to start out in 1st place with Werner Skuman in 2nd place. Jacques Ever sits in 3rd with Steven Vessels, WJ Wilson, Daniel Gilding, Michael Donaldson, 1st of the Pro-Ams. Cameron Bastos holds on to 8th, Loic Randall, and Jason Krenkers rounds out our top 10. Noah Hendricks and Sergei Sarkov will hope to keep each other busy off the start line as they get chased by Wesley Lewin, Jaco Finlith, Werner Swart, Tim Penny, Jaco Kutzer, Jan Engelbrecht, Willem Buerta, and Duncan Roderick round out our top 20. Joshua Syme, Sean Rudolph, Etienne Swart, and Stephen Cakebreed currently hold on to 24th position as we got Martin van Wyk, new to the grid, looking to fight it out in 25th. He's got Arno Kraus, Dina Machai, Doug Herbert, Paul Herbert, Neil Strobel, along with Willem Pinot, and rounding out the field, Tennis Buerta will look to battle it out and fight their way through. Tennis Buerta coming in from the world of ACC racing and a little bit of LMU, looks to have a bit of fun on the field, which is fantastic to see the driver, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what he can do. That being said, got a couple of drivers getting ready to line up on the field. George Reis out in first place. The W2W driver will battle it out against Werner Skuman, Jacques Heures, and Steven Wessels heading into turn 1, which is a tight right-hander for the drivers to see what they can do. It's going to be hard on the brakes to make it work out in their favor, and it's good to see drivers are ready to have some fun. But if you're just joining us, a massive welcome to round 3 of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway for the RaceFace.Pro iRacing GT3 Championship. It's good to have you guys here, and we're looking forward to some great racing indeed as the drivers start to maneuver their way behind the safety car for the first time. This is a 30-minute race in Heat 1. It will then later move to a 45-minute race for our end, where drivers will have a mandatory pit stop and have to change their tires. That makes things a little bit more interesting and is quite different to what we had going into the last run, where 2 weeks ago we had an 80-minute endurance race for drivers to fight it out. Let's see how they're going to do this time around as drivers start to make their way through. And it's going to be a tough time indeed as they all look to battle out. Sure, they're in fighting stance. So, as we get ready, our Pro and Pro-Am will start to get ready to filter their way through. It's going to be a monumental battle. Michael Donaldson will look to try and lead the Pro-Ams, while George Heures and Werner Skuman will battle nose to tail for leading out the Pros. So this will be the one for drivers to be aware of. Who are they fighting exactly, and who do they need to leave behind? As drivers will also have to consider their championships on what is the game plan here. It's always a little bit of finding out what happens during the course of this race, who's going to be able to make their way through, and who's going to be able to fight their way in through the order. So Heat 1 is 30 minutes, which in maximum amount of laps, if you're in an LMP1 that has no caps to it and just happens to be connected to a jet engine, that would be 80 laps around the circuit. Highly impossible, but hey, it lets you know that you got a bit of racing. Now, you will see drivers going and braking and moving left to right. This is to generate a bit of heat into their tires and into the brakes to ensure they're off to a great start and that they could slow these cars down rapidly. Now, fun fact for anyone out there in the iRacing service, braking and weaving, so doing both simultaneously, actually goes and warms up the tires more versus just aggressively weaving or going and brake drag, which people have gotten to know quite a bit. Henry Mayer coming in, our champion from the world of ACC, supporting in the Werner Skuman, our Pandacity drivers as they look to fight it out against our overseas compatriots. All the way, George Heures, who has been a dominating run every time he's hit the circuit. The W2W driver not looking to hang around at the moment, but he has got Steven Wessels, who is the current leader of the championship, the CSA driver, hoping to claw his way to victory. His time lining up against Jacques Heures, who is for Team SBR in that Mustang. It's going to make things rather uncomfortable for the start. So, safety car off the circuit, drivers at the ready. George Heures, Werner Skuman, hold the front row as we lights on, waiting for the green as they round the final corner for round 3. And away we go racing as green is called, and Steven Wessels gets a jump on Werner Skuman and contact behind. Huge contact. One of the Ferraris getting impacted, and both Paul Gerber and Doe Gerber getting taken out in the process. But it is Werner Skuman first into turn 1. Steven Wessels jumps up into second. George Heures down into third as Jacques Heures battles it out ahead of Dennis Kilding. And a slide coming in for Jason Krenkers. He loses the rear end, snatches it back, but now falls down the order as Cameron Bassots, Michael Donaldson all come flying through, and Noah Hendricks with a beautiful slide as well. Michael Donaldson keeping the pressure on and looking to try and fight his way through. Apologies for the blips in and out. The AWS server's not quite happy at the moment. Donaldson gets ahead of Bastos, looks to try and start the climb. As right on the back of him, Wesley Lewin, Jason Krenkers fight it out. for overall position. Not having an easy time out there. Wesley for the Pro-Am side is taking on Jason, who's not making it any easier. Donaldson was slow out the corner, and here comes Lewin late onto the anchors, and take a look at Jason up on the inside with the Aston Martin, trying to make it work out in his favor as they go side by side through the left-hander. Right behind them, Willem Buerter continues to hold a lot of pressure on the back of him, seeing where he can make some moves. Oh, bit of contact against the wall for Jason Crick, as that's going to slow him up and cause a little bit of damage to the car. Willem Buerter's got a straight line at the moment and hope it comes into play. Just behind, as we can see, Tim Penny hoping to get a little bit more of a climb under braking in the Chevrolet. Beautiful to get ahead of Werner Swart. Now Jaco van der Lift next up for the charge as we head back up to the sharp end of the field. Werner Skuman, Steven Wessels, and George Rez look to try and open up the gap early on for our top three. 30 minutes worth of racing means it's a lot of just jostling for position. And Steven Wessels tries around the outside, couldn't get the drive, lost a lot of the drive into the left-hander, and that's helped George Rez get on by side they go. Big slide coming out of Steven Wessels, who's got a bit of damage to the front of his car. A little bit of contact against Sharks Ever as he understeered out, and Dennis Gilding says thank you very much. He's going to take the run and get past him. So Daniel Gilding up into third place, and Daniel now looks to try and run away from Steven Wessels, who continues on the charge. WJ Wilson up into that top 5 with Noah Hendricks up 5 positions from where he started. Absolutely great stuff to see some drivers really making it work. But Skuban leads pros, Donaldson leads Pro-Ams, with WJ Wilson setting the fastest lap time of the race. As it said, Sharks Ever defensive as ever to try and hold back Cameron de Bastos, who sends it on in the inside, does just stop nearly into the door of Noah Hendricks, managed to make it work, but Sharks Ever did not expect him to hold that apex, and now needs to try and fight it out against Michael Donaldson, lurking behind in that Ferrari 296. First of the Pro-Ams has got Wesley Lewin hanging on the back of him, looking to fight it out as well. Black flag coming in for Dino Machai. Unfortunately, that is for track limits, and we'll have a drive-through as he lets the cars get on by. Oh, just losing the rear. The Team Slowpoke driver not having a good time out there. As we unfortunately have Dirk Herber out of Heat 1. He is in pit lane. Hopefully they can get that car sorted out and back in for Heat 2. Willem Pinault rounding out in 30th position at the moment. He's trying to chase down Dennis Buerter up ahead, who's not holding anything back at the moment. He's trying to go after the likes of Paul Herber at that early contact, and now just trying to drive through the pain as he got spun right into his own brother. Neil Strobel up ahead, first time out racing with us and still having a good drive out there. Scott Otto across just ahead of him, and oh no, that's Neil losing the car. A quick avoidance from the likes of Paul Herber, and Strobel having to just try and pick himself off the floor for that one. Didn't quite have an easy time. Fight out for the lead as George Rez now puts the pressure on Werner Skuman as they fight out for the lead. Steven Wessels fights out against Daniel Gilding as it stands. Both not going to back off at the moment. They're going to try and fight their way through. They've got WJ Wilson, Noah Hendricks, Cameron de Bastos, Sharks Ever, Michael Donaldson, and Wesley Lewin rounding out the top 10 as it stands. You can see Wesley just doing everything he can to Wessels trying everything he can to fight it out at the moment. WJ Wilson, who's got a bit of damage to the front end of his car, is just limping the car around, trying to see how many positions he can gain during the course of this race. Now, drivers do have a fast repair to make it work for them, but they've only got 2 fast repairs in the bag, which means you've got to be very, very careful with your driving. Any damage to the car will land up in some huge problems. Jaco van der Lift also starting to feel the pressure as he has got the likes of Tim Penny all over the back of him, and Tim is not backing down. Werner Swart closing up as well. Dino Machai into pit lane and will be having a drive-through as well when he gets out of pit lane. Unfortunately, we have further up ahead, Jason Krinkers once again catching the wall on the left-hand side. Sergei Sarkov trying to capitalize And there's Villenbuerta showing his nose, seeing where he can go, but Sergey's going to try to pull the trigger. Gets a little bit loose under braking as he tried for the inside line. Couldn't quite get it on the inside of the Pennzoil-coloured car, and now has to try and keep away from a fellow V8. And oh, Jason, a little bit slow for the sweep across the nose on Sergey Sarkov. Great racing up towards the top. It is going to be George Reyes once again, the outside. Looks to try and get past Werner Skuman, who's fighting it out tooth and nail at the moment. And Werner Skuman hasn't had any win, well, he hasn't had any championship wins in the GT3. If he can get a good drive here tonight and for the rest of the races, he will be climbing his way up through the order. However, it's going to be a tough time for him as he has won the likes of, would it be, he fought it out in the supercars, the previous gen supercars, and went for the championship there. So he's hoping to make it work out in his favor this time around. And it's going to be a little bit of hard work for the drivers as they continue their run. Neil Strobel coming out of the pit lane, but take a look at Toe. Top four all going and running in a snake at the moment. Werner Skuman left to defend the inside line as he tries to go and force George Reyes out a little bit wide. The W2W driver not backing out of the fight, wishes to continue to get a little bit closer and closer. Here's Daniel Gilding trying to fight it out all the way from England. Now taking on, as it is a multi-country battle in our top four. South Africa, Mexico, along with England and the likes of South African Steven Wessels, who continues to battle it out. And George Reyes snaps across the nose of Daniel Gilding, hoping to just keep that little bit of pace. Shocks ever getting ahead of Cameron Nabastos, under braking, sweeps around the outside, gets the inside line and has a beautiful run as he climbs up. Donaldson now trying to keep on the back of our pros. We'll take a look in his mirror and see Wesley Lewin doing a rather sterling job behind him, but lying in 17th position. This tells you the difference between the front of the Pro-Ams at the moment and the back of our pros. Joshua Syme in 17th position, third in class has got Jaco Kutzer, Stephen Cakebrand, all trying to keep around him. They got Werner Swart, Tim Penny, Jason Krinkers, Jaco van der Lith, and Sergey Sarkov. So close to one another, looking to try and fight it out, and none of them giving an inch as it stands. But still, it is going to be a chase down to the wires. Jaco van der Lith starting to lose a little bit of time, will start to feel the pressure, but take a look at Werner Swart. Peered around Tim Penny, said, I'm going to go for it, second guessed it, backed out, and rather kept for the run. So a couple of drivers still going. I want to give hats off to a driver though, Dino Machai of Team Slowpoke Racing. Despite having problems out there, is still racing his heart out, and he's down in 31st position. However, he is going and showing that you can keep going. So hats off to Dino. And also, if you see the green, you guys see the checker. It's always wonderful to see the drivers still keeping themselves on the ball. Blake Randall trying to go on the inside and getting past on across as it stands. A little bit of a pass for them. Sorry, that was Duncan Roderick. Now Team Triad Racing, so Blake Randall getting around him and now has his eyes firmly set on Johan Engelbrecht in that McLaren in the Vodafone colours. Going to see an old set of a tribute livery to McLaren's older days. But now Loic Roundabout looking to ensure he gets past Jan Engelbrecht as they fight it out for class position. A little bit of a lock-up under braking for the Porsche. Stephen Cakebrand up ahead continues to try and open the distance as it stands. Jaco Kutzer will try his best, but take a look at this as it's a fight out under braking. Jaco van Lith got to have Sergey Sarkov to go on the inside, loses it. Here's Jason Krinkers as well as the German driver sends it. Can he make it stick? Can the Aston pull away? And does do it. Sergey and Jason get past Jaco van Lith under braking, get the pass done, and now Tim Penny, Werner Swart close up the distance along with Joshua Syme as it stands. Werner Skuman going a little bit off circuit, losing some time there, and also clipping the dirt every time he goes and puts a wheel wrong. That's an incident point that starts to rack up, and these drivers every time they get an incident point, they've got about 17 to go for. If they get 17, it's a drive-through penalty that gets issued by the sim. Oh, big move for Steven Vessels, not holding back. Gets past the likes of Werner Skuman, who lost not only just one position, lost out to Daniel Gilding and WJ Wilson, so outbraked himself there and just got absolutely swamped on the way through. Daniel now looks to try and get past a little bit of a limping Steven Vessels at the moment. That damage on that front left not working out in his favor. He will have to push harder and harder each and every time. Jason Krinker's a little bit further down, still going to go after Sergei Sarkov. But take a look, Michael Donaldson caught right onto the back of Cameron DeBastos, and now just trying to open up the drive. I mean, this is going to be a proper move for them, but it's still going to be interesting stuff. Well, you're getting some supporters out on the top, and well, George Reyes opens the distance. Everyone's going to start whistling for Steven Whistle Vessels, as he's currently holding back Daniel Gilding, who is hunting him down at a rate of knots and seeing where he can go as he tries to fight his way through. And Jacques Ever, big problem for him, went off circuit. Wesley Lewin said thank you very much. He gained the position and now continues on the drive. Wesley Lewin up 5 places from the start. Jacques Ever down 6 as they continue on. The Lamborghini continues to battle his way through. Now, I think Wesley trying to save a bit of face after having a little bit of contact in certain endurance racing with the Team CSA and trying to make it up. I think Yuppie is going to be a bit hand up for that one. I think Yuppie, you're also part of the guys that kissed the wall a few times in the 24-hour. Werner Skuman goes for the send, gets a pass on WJ Wilson into turn 1. 200 meters, hit the brakes, 150, hit the brakes, and see what happens. Well, that is going and pushing the limits as our top 5 clear. Cameron DeBastos, who's a little bit further behind in 6th position overall and in class, while Michael Donaldson continues to hassle Cameron along. Right behind him, Wesley Lewin stays in the fray. Jacques Ever bounces over the curbs, and he goes and battles his way through. Willem Buerta still hangs on behind, just seeing where he get by. Sergei Sarkov, Jess Krinkers continue with the major train, as that is Werner Swart. Goes for a big look on Tim Penny. Couldn't quite get the drive to work out in his favor. And Joshua Saab, who holds 3rd of the Pro-Ams, now continues to hang on the back. 13 minutes have gone past, heading into 14. And drivers have now settled down the pace for now. How this is going to work is going to be a big point for many of the drivers. Donaldson trying to break away from Wesley Lewin, and Jacques Ever continues to hang on behind. So some great racing nonetheless, and some great drives. Let's quickly take a look at our classes as it stand, because the short race currently leads out top. Steven Vessels currently holds on 2nd place. Daniel Gilding, Werner Skuman, WJ Wilson, Cameron DeBastos, Jacques Ever, Willem Buerta, Sergei Sarkov, Jason Krinkers, and Jakob Philipp currently holds on to that 11th spot. Tim Penny, Werner Swart, Loic Randabel, Jan Engelbrecht, along with Paul Ferber and Noah Hendricks, who unfortunately have a little bit of a problem, is now further down into the bottom run. Looking at our Pro-Ams, it's Michael Donaldson, Wesley Lewin, Joshua Symes, Stephen Cakebread, Duncan Roderick, who continue to fight it out. Sean Rudolph, along with Mon Van Fake, Etienne Swart, Otto Cross, Tennis Puerto, Willem Pinot, Neil Strobel, and Dinamo Chai, along with Doe Huber, who's unfortunately out for the top running of this race. George Reyes currently opens up the distance in the pro field and looks to try and check out of the fight early on for the start. And this is also going to be rather interesting because we do have a reverse grid coming up for Heat 2 in a 45-minute race. That is going to throw the cat amongst the pigeons, because we'll see our top runners suddenly falling a little bit short, and we'll have to battle their way through. Wesley Lewin kept the pressure on. Back to Jacques Ever, couldn't get that pass done and dusted, as Dino opens up the gap and allows the drivers to come through. Well done to Dino on that one, as he's just using a bit of special awareness here, not wanting to get involved in too many fights, and wishes to try and keep himself in check. Willem keeps the pressure on Wesley Lewin as it stands. Well, they see Jacques Ever dropping a wheel into the dirt. And this is going to be a little bit of a tough time for the drivers, as you can see this marbles starting to build up more and more around the circuit. And going to make life a little bit more tricky. Sergei Sarkov looking to try and clear the likes of Dino as they come on through, but that's going to be Jaco van der Lith, who's unfortunately not going to clear in time under braking. And take a look, Jason defensive as Werner Swart dives for the inside line, couldn't quite get the jump and lands up losing a bit of pace there. Joshua Saab is going to come after him and will be closing down at a rate of 9. Drivers trying to figure out what is going to be the long-term plan here for them to work out in their favor. However, it's going to be a tough order for many of the drivers. We are getting reports, though, of a big crash. That's Wesley Lewin. Wesley Lewin has caught the wall. Let's quickly go take a look at the replay there. So he hooked onto the dirt, had the rear step on him, got on the power, and just the rear let go on that car, spun up. Oh, and there's the contact with one of the SBR cars. Heavy contact. And that, unfortunately, was a nasty one. Jaco van der Lith was the chap that got that huge impact, and now just trying to get himself going. That was a monster hit. Unfortunately, arriving on the scene of a stationary car has put to bed likes of Wesley Lewin and Jaco van der Lith's car as it stands. They will be able to get a bit of repair work on it, but Jason off the circuit loses out 2 places as Joshua, Werner Swart all get the pass done and continue on the drive. So not an easy time out for some, and others making life a little bit more tricky as Jason loses out and has likes of Jaco Kutzer all the way onto the back of him, trying to close up at a rate of knots in that BMW, continuing to push harder and harder as it stands. Drivers still making a little bit of hard work here and continue to fight it out. As we got a bit of a battle going on, Michael Donaldson and Jacques Ever look to fight it out between one another. Jacques Ever got him to lay the pressure on. Now, Donaldson is a Pro-Am driver, but is fighting amongst the pros, so do expect that he joins the likes of Mr. Constantine, who's unfortunately not in the grid tonight, up into pros. And once again, a bit sad not to see him out on the grid, but always good to see him coming in a little bit later. And once again, congratulations on the promotion up a class after proving quite a dominating affair. Well, Michael Donaldson, I do think, will be one of those drivers as well with his current performance. Jacques Ever and Willem Buerta keep the pressure on the back of him and looking to try and keep going. So, a couple of drivers still out there trying to figure out what is going to be the game plan. But currently, Joshua Syme looking to try and close up the distance, holds on to second place Jaco Kutzer, on to third in the Pro-Am field, and Joshua keeps the pressure on Werner Swart as it stands to try and see where he can get on by. Duncan Roderick a little bit further down, looking to try and clear the likes of Engelbrecht ahead of him and go chasing after Stephen Cakebread, who holds on to 4th position. As Jan Engelbrecht utilising the rotation on that McLaren, lots and lots of power underfoot, but it is the likes of Stephen Cakebread continues to open up the distance as it stands and tries to maintain a top 5 position. Rebel Ring wasn't quite his lucky time. Lamar wasn't a lucky time, and Dietmar once again off into the dirt, trying to stay out of the way from a lot of the drivers. Doesn't want to be caught out there, as we do see the likes of Neil Strobel trying to keep himself going. He has got on the asymmetric racing drivers, that's Noah Hendricks closed up on the back of him and looking to try and get through. Noah Hendricks trying to unlap himself from the race. He's had a little bit of a tough time out here, but the asymmetric racing driver hasn't backed out of the fight as yet, and can tell you from personal experience, he's a driver that will absolutely fight you tooth and nail and will literally kick and claw every position available. Found that one, especially in Mazdas, the young chap tends to monitor not only his input but everyone else's as well. Jacques Ever keeps the pressure on Michael Donaldson and Willem Buerta hangs on the back. Now, this is going to be an interesting time as Jacques looks to try and look for the inside line. Bit of a big eye in that profile picture is what he's doing at the moment, trying to spot where exactly can he get past Michael Donaldson as it stands. And with Willem Buerta a little bit too early on the cornering there, will pick up a track limit. Got to be careful on that one and see where he goes. But it is going to be Donaldson a little bit slow coming out of the final corner. The Ferrari not quite working to where he wants it to be. Now has Jacques Ever towing along, looks towards the inside line. Going to try go late on the braking, couldn't quite get it done. That's allowed Willem Buerta to close the distance yet again. The two Mustangs crawling all over that Ferrari and continuing to close the gap. Werner Skimmert closing up to Daniel Gilding as he's also trying to retake a few positions. Paul Gerber out on circuit, minding out of the way. Good to see Paul Gerber out and going. He has had a bit of repair work done to his car, but the Gerbers still getting at least one of the cars out onto the track and to join in the fun. So Werner hoping to get into third place as it stands. Not much time left as they've lost track of George Racing's team vessels as it stands. But third is still open cards between these two. The Porsche and the Ferrari continue to brawl back and forth. Werner Skimmert out very wide. Tries to go late on the brakes. Looks for the inside line. Can he get it worked out? Dives to try and get it worked. Unfortunately, stuck on the outside in through the right-hander. That's allowed Daniel Gilding to really get the pace and nice and close to the wall here at Indianapolis through the final corner as they cross the brick road and now continue on the drive. WJ Wilson will be also taking a look where he can try and make up some time to them as he's a little bit further back as it stands. Great to see some monstrous battles going on. Jacques Ever look towards the inside once again on Michael Donaldson. Bounces over the curb, just not able to really sling it through. And you can see the likes of Willem Buerta hangs in for the mix as well. The RDSA esports driver in the Ford Mustang was battling a little bit in practice. Seems to have got the car all hooked up now and is putting immense pressure on. Jacques Ever is mounting the curbs hugely at the moment. Skuman trying to make his way through, and Wesley Lewin back out on track. Good to see him out there, and continues on the drive after monstrous impact. Lost control in the car, unfortunately, on the SBR cars, just nailing into the side of him. Goes and broke it, but both cars managed to rejoin the circuit, continue on the race and see it through to the end. It's always great to see. If you see the green, you've got to see the checkered. That's my motto. I'll stick to it every single time. Werner Skimmert, loss of drive, big time to Daniel Gilding. And now we'll be looking to try and figure out what happens at the moment. Take a look at Michael Donaldson as he keeps it together. Jacques Ever catches the wall, and here comes Willem Buerta. Rate of knots. He saw that there is a chance. Jacques Ever goes defensive inside after clipping the wall. Late on the brakes. Buerta trying to make it work. Can he slide it in? Side by side they go. Buerta puts his nose in. Can he get the drive on Jacques Ever? Not quite this time round, but it does go for the switchback. Beautifully hooks it in. Needs to get on the gas and make it work, and he does just fractionally get ahead. Bounces the curb. Jacques Ever down into 9. Buerta continues on. One of the SBRs moving out of the way, not wanting to be caught out there between the teammates, and now Willem Buerta, after a beautiful switchback, got it hooked in. What a drive there. And Jacques Ever will fight his way through yet again. And take a look, Werner Swart all over the back of Tim Penny as it stands. The only Chev in the field, and fights it out against the BMW of Werner Swart. Joshua Syme holds on to second place in the Pro-Am field and will be doing everything he can. Sean Rudolph looks to fight it out against Martin van Veek. Two teammates new to the grid look to fight it out with one another and continue on the drive. Unfortunately, Dino Machai into the pits. Paul Gerber into the pits, trying to get themselves sorted out. Drive through for Dino Machai after track limits exceeded and will be kicking himself on that one. Take a look, Tim Penny feeling the pressure. Werner Swart trying to line him up, looks to the inside. It's a defense, it's moving across, it's going to lock down. Tim Penny's not going to have an easy time as Werner Swart try to cut round the outside. No movement there to be done. And now continues on. Werner Swart for the Altered Carbon Racing team fights out against Tim Penny, who doesn't want to back down at the moment, does not want to yield, and will continue on the drive. Closes up against that rear wing. Can he make it work? Looks closer, closer, closer. Couldn't quite get it done. Switches to the inside, late on the brakes. Couldn't get it sorted out. Car gets a little bit unstable. So does Tim Penny's Chev. Under braking, the two of them still brawl on as it stands. Joshua side now onto the back of them as well. And just a little bit further back, we see Jason Krenkers has joined in the party to have some fun. Loic Randabel will also be looking to close up onto the field as they continue on the drive. Still, Werner Swart, no room to get on by. Willem Buerta into pit lane is now getting himself sorted out. And I think possibly under-fueled on that one. Drivers continue to make their way through, and it's going to be nose to tail. Willem Buerta falls down the field as it's Tim Penny holding deep on the inside. Werner Swart tries to switch his way through, slams across the nose of Joshua, who comes back at him and had to mind out of the way there for a late move for Werner Swart, and that's allowed Jason Krenkers to come up on the inside. Jason couldn't get the drive, and Joshua just managing to pull his way through. Loic Randabel joins onto the fray as well as they continue to brawl. It is turning into a wild waste here in the mid-pack of the field. Willem Buerta coming out of pit lane will bring himself all the way to 24th in position overall, as we see Jason once again takes a little lunge to try and see where he can get by. Loic Randabel looking to try and get past Joshua Syme at the moment, who's making life rather difficult to try and battle his way around, and we'll be seeing where exactly can he come in. WJ Wilson into the pit lane as well as Cameron Bastos comes across the line. So WJ unfortunately burned through the fuel a little too much, and I think this is a big one for drivers because they currently 28 minutes completed of this 30-minute race, and this is now devastating for those that have pushed that just a little bit too hard. Sean Rudolph as well trying to fight his way through, but take a look, Werner Skuman trying desperately for that top three. Can he get it hooked in for the last 2 minutes of this race? Well, 1 minute of this race. Skuman around the outside. Daniel Gilding defends on the inside. Sweeps to the outside. Side by side they go. Both having great rotation, but it is going to be the Ferrari with a better line. But just battles to close the door on Werner Skuman as they continue to fight their way through. And it's going to be George Reyes fights it out in first place, 3 seconds ahead of Stephen Vessels. Good road positions for them, but third place on the cards as Skuman once again deep on the inside, locking up the anchors behind Daniel Gilding. Couldn't quite get that pass to work out in his favor, and still battles to try and hold on. So drivers doing everything they can at the moment as they come through, but I think it's going to be George Reyes, and he will be on his last lap. So this is a final lap dash for third. Oh, as contact, Werner Skuman into the back of Daniel Gilding as damage to Daniel's car and to Werner Skuman. Daniel trying to keep it all together. That Ferrari now hurting. Will try and gently come through as Werner Skuman has come off the gas after that bit of contact. He will have to just keep it well enough in check. Wesley Lewis pulling Cameron de Bastos along. That battle for third place is all changed up. Is it gonna be a run for Cameron de Bastos to close up to Werner Skuman? It's gonna be a bit of hard work there, but Daniel Gilding continues on the charge. No wing, no rear body, absolutely still giving it horns, wants to hang on to third place. This is going to be a great run. And honestly, for Ferrari, really keeping up the charge. Lamborghini started by building a tractor as their first make into automotives, while Ferrari looks like going for a no-wing approach. A bit of an going for the new Peugeot 9X8 approach with no wing. So Daniel Gilding will come across in third place. Short race, Stephen Vessels take the first two. Daniel Gilding comes across the line. Michael Donaldson will be battling his way through as Werner Skuman and Cameron Bassos come across through. Jacques Evans, Sergei Sarkov will round out the 7th spot in our pro field. Michael Donaldson will take the victory here in the Pro-Ams, with Tim Penny in 8th place for the pros. Vernon Swart, Luke Randall. Joshua Side at the moment will come across 2nd place in Pro-Am, ahead of Jaco Kotza, but not by much. Will take 3rd in the Pro. Jason Krinker has finished up in 11th position for the pros. Stephen Cakebread, Duncan Roderick, Jan Engelbrecht, Martin van Veek, Sean Rudolph, along with Etienne Swart, Otto Kraus, WJ Wilson, Tianis Puerta, Willem Puerta will continue their charge. Willem Pinot, Neil Strobel, Wesley Lewin, Jakob van der Lith, Noah Hendricks, Paul Gerber, Dina Machai, and Do Gerber, who round out the pack. So what a great first heat, folks, and our 30-minute Heat 1 completed of this race, as we will be looking over to Heat 2 that will be starting a little bit shortly. They have 5 minutes to just run through their setups, making sure they're A-OK. But that being said, let's take a look at some of the results of Heat 1 and see who finished where. Taking a look first at our Pro-Am field. Michael Donaldson took the win with Joshua Saad, Jaco Kotze, Stephen Cakebread, Duncan Roderick, Martin van Veek, Sean Rudolph, along with Etienne Swart, Otto Kraus, Tilas Puerta, Philip Pinot, Neil Strobel, Wesley Lewin, Dina Machai, and Doak Herber. Unfortunately, not going and finishing this race. And we'll be back for Heat 2. Taking a look at our pros. And it's George Rees who took the victory, along with Stephen Vessels, Daniel Gilding, Werner Skuman, Cameron DeBassol, Sharks Ever up into 6th position. Sergei Sarkov, Tim Penny, Werner Swart, Luke Randall, Jason Krickers, Jan Engelbrecht, WJ Wilson, Willem Buerta, Jakob van der Lith, Noah Hendricks, and Paul Gerber round out the pack here at the RaceFace.Pro iRacing GT3 Championship. And everyone now looking to see what is going to work out in their favor. And if you're just joining us, you missed our Heat 1. But we're going to be moving into Heat 2. 45 minutes race with a mandatory pit stop with all 4 tires need to be changed during the course of this race. It does make things a little bit more tricky out there. Drivers will have to bear that in mind for their race. How they're going to get the climb is always a tough one indeed. So, as we get ready to rock and roll, take a look over to the virtual grandstand. Yuppie Simons, K&H, Motorsport, Armour, and many, many more joining us. And a massive welcome to you all here at RaceFace.Pro. We're looking forward to having a great run. Warm-up is underway at the moment for our drivers as they look to try and get themselves sorted out. A couple of drivers out on circuit, like Michael Donaldson, trying to just get some pace underneath him and get to grips with the car after taking the victory in the Pro-Am field. 11 seconds away from the likes of our previous champion, Joshua Syme, who looks to try and make it work out in his favor. So, as we make our way through, let's see how everyone is going to work out. So we'll see how drivers are going to move their way forward. Lots and lots of pace is needed. And we'll see how the drivers are going to make their way around the field. And we're going to be thinking, what is going to be the game plan here? So, that being said, let's see what is going to be the heads up. WJ Wilson hoping for a increase of pace. Dina Machai, after a bit of a rough Heat 1, hopes to make a good run at the moment and will be looking to fight his way through the field and be back in front running order. Unfortunately, the contact early on at the start against the likes of Do Heures and the likes of Paul Herbert landed up with Do Heures retiring out of the race. Do Heures was able to finish a little bit further. Paul Herbert went and finished the race, but further down than planned. With a minute left of our warm-up, drivers will look to keep themselves going and looking to fight it out for the top order. Going to be a tough time out there, and seeing who will win for tonight. So, that being said, let's take a quick look at our championship. Reminder of how our championship works here at RaceFace.Pro. We've got multiple different formats that the drivers will have to do. As we take a look over to our pro, Steven Vessels, who got second place in Heat 1, will be leading the championship as it stands. George Heures finishing up in first place, is on 146, and that win in Heat 1 is exactly what he needs to stand for the fight. Cameron Bastos in third, with Longland, Sean, Jans van Rensburg, Malcolm Pringle, Jacques Evert, Jakob van Lith, Jason Krinkers, Daniel Gilding, Sergei Sarkov, Paul Herbert, Janneman Price, Noah Hendricks, Tim Penny, Dami Herber, along with W.J. Wilson, Jan Engelbrecht, Werner Skuman, Janis Konstantin, after the promotion up into pro, is currently in 19th position, with Werner Swart in 20th for our pros. Taking a look at our pro-am, it is Joshua Syme, Yasin Ismail, Kotleko Makali, Lana Cross, Duncan Roderick, Etienne Swart, Do Heures, all going and finding out, with Ben England chasing him down, Wesley Lewin, Robbie Teens in that top 10. Sean Sums, along with Quinton Costa, Craig Starkey, Stephen Cakebread, Dina Machai, Mark Lawlinson, Eugene Berryman, Willem Pina, Matthew Luke, and Jaco Kutzer round out our pack for our championship positions. So, drivers at the ready, looking to get themselves off the line, going to be fighting it out, and we did talk about a reversal of grid positions. Well, take a look who's starting where, because it's Loic Radwell, Werner Swart, Tim Petty, Michael Donaldson, Sergei Sarkov, Jacques Evert, Cameron Bastos, Werner Skuman, Daniel Gilding, Steven Vessels, and George Heures, rounding out our top 11, as we have swapped the top 11 from Heat 1 around to have a bit of fun out here. So it does put a different spin on what you need to do. The reverse grids do make things a little bit more challenging for drivers and for our faster guys like Steven Vessels and George Heures. They not only have to compete against one another, but also clear the field to make it work out in their favour. Werner Skuman, who was a little bit further down, will look to try and also reclaim some victory points here. He's got Daniel Gilding, who finished up third position with no rear wing. Might I add, completely destroyed rear end. He looks to try and fight his way through. So Loic Randabelt, first time fighting it out in the pros, and first time going and fighting it first on the grid. Now, if I go back in a little bit of history here, Loic Randabelt, if I remember correctly, has never started on the front row in his sim racing career. So this is a big one for him. He's going to be fighting out against Werner Swart, who has been on the front row once in single seaters. So now this is going to be a big change for him, looking to fight it out. Tim Penny, who is all the way out from the likes of England, has got Michael Donaldson locking him into that fourth position. Will be trying to fight his way through Michael Donaldson, who's currently ahead of all the Pro-Ams, as his only fight for it is down in 11th position with Daniel Gilding and Joshua Syme, who are holding 10th and 11th position as it stands. So, going to be a bit of a wild one for our drivers to see what works. Sergei Sarkov, after a bit of hard work, will be trying to fight his way through. He's got some old rivals lining up next to him, likes of Jacques Evert, Cameron Bastos, Werner Skuman, Daniel Gilding, all looking to try and get themselves going. Wesley Lewin having a bit of a problem on the pace lap. And let's quickly take a look at what happened to Wesley Lewin. Did he put a wheel wrong? I think slightly. A little bit of a nudge coming in. Oh, another nudge. That is Noah Hendricks, who went through, and Wesley Lewin trying to go back. It looks like they got glued. So looks like Noah Hendricks running into a bit of issues off the start of his race. And there was a network crash for him. Unfortunately, Wesley Lewin got a bit of damage, so he's going to be starting from pit lane as well. So not ideal circumstances for the CSA driver, Wesley Lewin, and will be really not the happiest camper after that one. But Noah Hendricks looked like he had a bit of a disconnect because he also went into the back of Willem Pinot. So not ideal for the start of the race, but sometimes we do run into issues like this where there is disconnects in the world of sim racing. What you do with it, that can bring you back. So Wesley Lewin hopefully going to get that car fixed and back out onto the circuit to join up with the rest of the race. Jaco Kutzer going to be starting from pit lane as well as Werner Swart, Loic Randall, and look to try and make their way around the final corner. Pace car is in. Heat 2, 45 minutes, 1 mandatory pit stop. Lights will go on, and we will be going racing in just a moment time. Lights off, lights on, and away we go. Loic Gradwell trying to get the jump off the line, and take a look at Werner Skuman. Also launches his way through. Steven Vessels trying to have a go on the outside, heading into turn 1. Jacques Ever trying to keep it all together, but it is Werner Swart who gets ahead of Loic Gradwell before now as they side by side into turn 1. Donaldson takes the fight to Tim Penny, and a little bit further down, Werner Skuman looks to try and claw his way back. Jacques Ever switches up his tyres quite quickly and moves on. Loic Gradwell loses the rear end of the car, and that is him down the order. Donaldson up into first, Swart into second, Tim Penny now has Jacques Ever looking around, Werner Skuman, Jason Krinker, Steven Vessels all hunting for a way through as it stands, but it is going to be late on the brakes for the likes of Werner Swart. Jacques Ever hangs on to third, Tim Penny slots in behind as Jason tries to bring himself back into the train. Big look on the inside of the Chev, gets it past, and Jason gets the run round, and that is Steven Vessels. Steven Vessels lost control of the car, contact against Cameron de Bastos on the way through, and that is him broken and out. What on earth happened? So this is the W2W. George Reyes gets on by, and the Aston Martin gets clipped, unfortunately, slides into Steven Vessels, and that is it. Cameron taking the hits, unfortunately. Not a good run for him, as he just got tagged by the Porsche and turned him around and landed up with that damage. And Steven Vessels going to be crying a little bit with that damage as he dives into pit lane. Thankfully got a bit of repair work, but it is a 45-minute race, so go and swap out those tires, get yourself back in, and continue on the race. So it's now strategy calls need to be made as they battle their way on. Jacques Ever tries to look on the inside of Joshua's side. Werner Skuman, who fights left and right, trying to see where can he get by, likes of Jacques Ever as it stands. His driver's pushed himself a little bit more. So, big mistake coming in for one of the McLarens, and that is Martin van Veek, who gets a bit lost in the sauce. Werner Skuman, big lunge on the inside, gets it ahead of Jacques Ever. Now trying to get past the likes of Joshua Syme as they battle their way through. Joshua currently second in the Pro-Ams and continues to try and open up that gap a little bit further. And it looks like a problem coming in for WJ Wilson. Under braking. McLaren getting a little bit out of shape. Hooks in behind Paul Gerber. Little contact between the two. And that is him. Turn round, swap round. And drivers having to take evasive maneuvers. A little bit of contact on the way through. He tried to get that call for racing line. Unfortunately, had that contact. It looked like it might have been against Gerber on that run. Or it might have just gotten away past. Yeah, he did. He managed to get clean of it. Loic Gradwell trying to bring himself after starting in first. Had the rear step on him. Tiana Sporter and Sean Rudolph ahead of him. Now look to keep him a bit of company. And Do Gerber coming back in. Willem Buerta with a bit of repair work to his car as he tries to get himself back up and going. Jaco Kutzer with a drive-through penalty. There's Wesley Lewin joining back up with the race. So a couple of drivers going and spending a little bit of time in the pits, looking to try and figure out their way through. Sean Rudolph, new to the field, has got Loic Randall trying to hunt his way through as they see Jaco van der Lith hops over the curb trying to gain some time to young Engelbrecht. And Joshua Side down into likes of 5th place in class. Not a good run for him. Lost out a lot of drive, unfortunately. And now loses out to both Etienne Swart, Duncan Roderick, and in 2nd place, Stephen Cakebread, going and fighting his way through and looks to try and continue on the drive. So Cakebread currently in 2nd, chasing down Tim Penny ahead of him. He's got Sergei Sarkov and Paul Herber for a bit of company. But taking a look, where is likes of George Heures, who took the victory in Heat 1. He's up into 5th place, putting pressure on Werner Skuman for the start of the race. They got Cameron Bastos ahead of him, who landed up with that bit of damage after slightly getting clipped and slides out into 7 Vessels once again. Unfortunate, but both for Vessels and likes of Cameron Bastos landing up on the same piece of tar, sliding it out, and unfortunately that ended up with some big impact between the two of them. Needing some repair work to move forward. George Heures all over the back of Werner Skuman. That's allowed Daniel Gilding to get back into the fray. Continues on the charge. Daniel Gilding trying to make his way through, but it's George Heures with the fastest lap time in the race. Still fights it against Werner Skuman. Goes around the outside, late on the brakes, but the bullshit driver going to make it work out for the Pandacity team as he fights his way on. George Heures not quite holding back as yet. Will be trying to spot out what can he do. Etienne Swart into pit lane as well, and is unfortunately falling way down the order. Looks like he may actually be out of the race in total, which is a nightmare situation for him after such a climb. It's all fallen apart at the last minute, unfortunately. So drivers needing to try and figure out what is the game plan here. Where can they make up the drive, and who is going to be up ahead in this very difficult race as they continue on the run. Donaldson tries to clear the rest of the field and continues on the charge. Jaco van der Lith keeps pressure on Joshua Syme, who's up into 4th for the likes of our Pro-Am field. Jaco van der Lith not holding back at the moment, continues to fight it out as it stands. So no breakaway just as yet, and with the 45-minute mark going to be the checkered flag, drivers will have to consider roughly about 20 minutes to pull in the pits, swap tyres and get going. That is equivalent to 30 seconds plus in the box that the drivers will need to compete with, whether you've gone for a short fuel or whether you've gone for a long fuel. That is going to be the game plan for majority of the drivers who are looking to fight their way during the course of this race and see what's going to be the big game plan during the course of it. Comes down to strategy each and every time, and Sean Rudolph catches up to Loic Randall as they head on to the oval, and just braking hard for the right-handers. Young Engelbrecht keeps an eye on Jaco van der Lith, and Joshua Syme adds a stand. Werner Swart sets fast lap time of the race and gets beaten now by George Heures with a 123.9. Might be quicker, but definitely not having the pass done on Werner Skuman, who continues his way through. Cameron de Bastos, who is blue flagged, just watches on as these two continue to brawl it out. Currently for 3rd in the Pro Division, as Donaldson has checked out of the fight for now, and it leads out the Pro-Am as Werner Skuman, the Pandacity driver, getting cheered on from the grandstands. That is for sure. The W2W driver won't be holding back. Oh, snap around the outside. Tries to bring it back and not having the easy pass there. Daniel Gilding gives a quick flash of lights to Cameron de Bastos. Said, look, buddy, I need to try and get round you. It needs to be fairly quick to try and clear and catch up to these two ahead of you who I'm brawling with in position. So Cameron de Bastos going to be opening up the taps. Goes out a little bit wide, late on the brakes, tries to bring himself a little bit closer to George Heures and the likes of Werner Skuman. He doesn't want to lose up too much time. He knows that he's at the moment playing in a field where the guys are a lap ahead of him. and fighting for position, so he's got to be very, very careful where he does things. And will be lifting off the gas here, and there is going to be Daniel Gilding and Tim Penny, who's a little bit further behind. But take a look, Werner Skuman, defensive inside line, W2, driver. George Reyes trying to go around the outside, late on the brakes, and really tries to get it done and dusted. However, couldn't get the pass sorted out. That's compromised his drive for Daniel Gilding to close up the distance. Now, let's go a little bit back in the field. Paul Herbert and Stephen Catebread fight it out with one another. Stephen Catebread, second in the Pro-Am division, has the likes of Paul Herbert, Team Try Hard Racing, along with fellow Team Try Hard Racing, Duncan Roderick, onto the back of him as well. Duncan needs to get past Stephen Catebread as they are both in the Pro-Am division and looking to see what that is going to work out for them. Paul Herbert, after a bit of a chaos start in Heat 1, looks like Heat 2 playing into his favor as he fights out, heading for 9th position overall with Stephen Catebread ahead of him. Some great running from our drivers, but let's take a look further up at the field as George Reyes and Daniel Gilding all over the back of one another. Cameron De Bastos hangs on the back. He is a blue flag car. However, take a look at where he would have been unless for that contact didn't happen, because he would have been fighting with this line, who are continuing to brawl as Werner Skuman, once again, great defensive driving, holds that inside line, goes and forces George Reyes and the likes of Daniel Gilding follow the snake, trying to keep each other going, trying to keep in that slipstream as it stands, not turning into an easy time. And as they fight it out for position, Doug Herbert continues on his pace. He's got Onno Kraus trying to make up some time underneath him. Late on the brakes, Kraus couldn't quite get that pass done and dusted. Doug Herbert currently running 7th in the Pro-Am class, fighting out against fellow Pro-Am driver Onno Kraus. So great to see everyone stepping up their game, trying to figure out what is the game plan. What can they do? 45 minutes worth of racing. Sharks ever further down the field. Now, that being said, we did bring up about the mandatory pit stop that is needed for the drivers. And that is going to really change how things go, because that means a new set of tires need to be put on the car and fuel coming into it as well. That's going to be the main driving point for drivers to really make it work out in their favor. And if we take a look, it's all the way down to 23rd position. Likes of Jaco Kutzer, Jacques Eber, and Cameron De Bastos are the only drivers thus far that have gone and done their first pit stop. However, our top-end drivers up from 1st to 22nd, as we do see that was the likes of Willem Pinot diving out of the way. The team's Bolt Racing team diving out of the way. Looks to try and keep himself all together. So really, really good to see as drivers bounce over the curbs. George Reyes and Werner Skuman attacking that curb as hard as they can as it stands. See where it's all going to work out in their favor. And George Reyes not having an easy time with Werner Skuman at the moment, who battles to hold on to that 4th place. Jason Grinkers has opened up the gap with the Aston Martin, and Daniel Gilding in the Ferrari a little bit further behind is going to be in a happy situation to see these two pushing harder and harder. They're wearing their tires out. They might not have that longer drive that's needed between one another. And you can see Werner once again holds the inside line, trying to really make it work out in his favor, taking a very, very aggressive line. That's going to wear out the tires, and that starts to show in the Porsche, getting a little bit unsettled under throttle as George Reyes had to come off the power. He swifts to the top. Oh, very close contact into the wall as Werner Skuman left no room for error there. George Reyes into the wall. Daniel Gilding looks to the inside line. Daniel going to look to get on by. No room to get on by. Late on the brakes as they continue their way through. Daniel backed out of it. Saw the fight going to pursue up ahead as Werner Skuman fights against the likes of George Reyes. Both of them are having a little bit of contact, and it's a slide out for the likes of George Reyes. Skuman goes and gets on by, but possibly that would have been a bit of contact, I think, that caused the spin. So George Reyes, unfortunately, getting caught out there. Let's quickly take another look. had the rear snap out underneath him. Was able to catch him, bring it back onto circuit, but a little bit further down from where he wanted. That is now going and bringing Daniel Gilding up through the order, along with Tim Penny, Sergei Sarkov, all getting the climb, as well as George now looks to try and recover that little bit of more of a run. So, as we continue on for Heat 2 of Round 3 of the RaceFace.Pro iRacing GT3 Championship, our 45-minute race, top 11 were swapped around, and that is unfortunately a bit of contact to Sergei Sarkov, and they would have been up against Tim Penny, unfortunately, who's trying to get himself going. The Prestata Nomad team not having an easy time out there, losing out a lot of drive. Loose out to Joshua side. George Rez pulls into pit lane. Looking to try to get his pit stop done and dusted. Come back fighting. Tim Penny, however, has got a lot of pressure. Young Ingenbrecht and Sean Rudolph closing up at a rate of knot. They're going to have a lot better tyres heading into the corners. Not as heated up compared to the likes of Tim Penny after that little bit of a touch and a little bit of a slide, costing him so much time during the course of this race. Jaco van Lith keeps pressure on Duncan Roderick at the moment, as Stephen Cakebread just up ahead of him is currently second place. Duncan Roderick holds third for our Pro-Am, looking to try and close up the distance as it's a late lunge for Jaco van der Lith to get on by. And interesting, Duncan Roderick opened up the door, allowed that pass to happen, and unfortunately that's cost him a bit of time as Joshua Syme looks to try and capitalize on the moment. Remember, Joshua came right into second place during the course of Heat 1. He was up towards top in second place in Heat 2. He's dropped to top 5, and now he's back up into fourth place, staring at the back of Duncan Roderick's the purple and white Porsche, as he will be trying to figure out what is the game plan here, what's needed to fight their way through. Jan Engelbrecht pulls into pit lane as he does his mandatory pit stop, slows it down to 50 kilometers an hour here at Indianapolis. An absolute hill of momentum to get into that pit lane. However, early stops coming in for a lot of the drivers around the 15-16 minute mark to try and get themselves sorted out, and will be heading back onto the circuit. Remember, with that mandatory pit stop done and dusted, many of these drivers will be racing it through to the line, and it's going to set the precedent of what's happening. Jan Engelbrecht, currently in that top 20, will be looking to come out ahead of Jaco Kutzer, George Reyes, Sharks Ever, Loic Randebel, and Cameron de Bastos as it stands, but it's going to be a bit of hard work to do so. As a swap round coming into play, Joshua Syme keeps pressure on Duncan Roderick. Stephen Cakebread lifted to allow Jaco van Lith to come on by, and that's how it cost him a bit of time, as here comes the likes of Duncan round the outside, late on the anchors, trying to go for the inside, a little too far to make it work. Joshua now closes up as it is a battle for second, third and fourth in the Pro-Am field as it stands. Joshua, Duncan, Stephen Cakebread continue on the charge. Aston Martin's looking left and right, but it is going to be the Porsche of Duncan Roderick that's going to have the advantage through the corners. But here is Joshua looking for the inside. Can he go late on the brakes to make it work to get ahead of Duncan? Both braking as late as possible, but Duncan gets that nose ahead. Can he get on the power a little bit earlier? He does, to defend against Joshua. That's allowed Stephen Cakebread to open up the gap just a little bit more now. Everyone trying to pick up the pieces of this race, see where it's all going to work out, and where are they going to go. Unfortunately, Stephen Vessels is out of the race. That is a detriment to his running. WJ Wilson is out of the race. Etienne Swart is the last of those runners, as Willem Pinot into pit lane and now gets himself out. He's going to be trying to catch up to Etienne Swart as it stands. Bit of a blow for Vessel's championship, as he's going to be losing a lot of points on the table here during the course of it. Not ideal running, as Michael Donaldson continues to open up the pace. He continues to lead up ahead of the field. However, it's still a long race to go, and still a lot of time for our drivers to really see what brings into the results. See who's going to be able to get that climb, as it said. Steven Vessels, though, going to be dropping his worst result, and that is a DNF for this one. Unfortunately, not ideal race to have, but Michael Donaldson leads out the Pro-Am field as Werner Swart leads out the Pro field as it stands. Joshua Syme and Stephen Cakebread continue to fight it out as Duncan Roderick a little bit further down, trying to make his way through Dino Machai, who gets the look and the pass as it stands. Dino is a little bit further down the order. He's a blue flag driver, but still continues to fight it out. Tim Penny of the Pros continues to keep ahead on Rudolph in that Ford Mustang. Duncan Roderick slips down into 12th position, now trying to make his way through. Needs to catch up to Sean Rudolph, who's lying 4th in the Pro-Am field. So as we get to see drivers trying every nook and cranny, trying to get the passes done and dusted, there's still lots and lots in the bag. And who is going to go for the long game during the course of this race? Oh, and there is Tim Penny. Late decision for him to dive into the pits. Decided he's losing a little bit of time there. Gets the pit stop done and dusted. He will tumble down the order, but did he take a long enough drive to ensure he locks in a high enough position at the moment, as our Pro-Ams are also trying to make their way around. Doug Herbert will get past Tiernis Burta, who's into the pits. Tim Penny's into the pits, so Doug Herbert up into 6th, Honor Kraus into 7th, Joshua Syme in 2nd, Stephen Cakebread in 3rd, Sean Rudolph in 4th, but Michael Donaldson leads out the Pro-Am field. It is still a long race indeed for our drivers. George Reyes hoping to get a little bit more time underneath him. Looks to try and close up to Vernon Skuman up ahead. The two of them had a little bit of a coming together in the early parts of the race. Back and forth battles. However, now let's see who's going to have the climb. Both have gone through pit lane, and both are looking to make it work out in their favor. This is always a tough one for the drivers, as they had to really think out of the box here. Now, Werner Skuman leads out in a net first place for the Pro and overall as he's done his stop. George Reyes is putting pressure on him to try and get that done and dusted, but it is our top 15 that are yet to do their first stop. And to get that mandatory pit stop out of the way, Sharks Ever closes up to the likes of George Reyes. He's hoping to make it work. Stephen Cakebread and Sean Rudolph pull into the pits. Joshua Syme and Duncan Roderick decide otherwise. They're not going to go into the pits. And is this going to be an overcut situation for them? Or will Cakebread and Rudolph be able to get that undercut to work out in their favor and ensure they're in for the fight as well? Like Randabelt, Jardingenbrucht continue on their charge, hoping to fight their way through. Always a tough time indeed. Like Randabelt, after starting out in first place, landed up with that spin, cost him time. He did a bit pit stop as well. It's down 22 positions since the start of the race. Porsche just not playing into favor with him. He has got the likes of Jardingenbrucht ahead of him in that McLaren, and hoping that gets a little bit more pace to him. Sean and Stephen Cakebread are coming out of pit lane, and they will have to keep ahead of Tennis Porter. Oh, big carnage for Tim Penny coming onto the oval. The rear snapped on him and spiked him into the wall. That is some monster damage to his car, and he has to wait for a clear turnaround to get himself going. Werner Swart into the pits, but what a big loss on that Chev. Unfortunately, has got a meatball flag, which means it is time for repair on his car. And that is not going to work out in his favor. Werner Swart into pit lane. Joshua Syme into pit lane as well, as Duncan Roderick up into 2nd place. Doug Herbert will be quite happy on his climb up into 3rd in class, with Honor Kraus trying to chase him down. But it is still a lot of racing to go. Repairs can be done to cars, but unfortunately for Tim Penny, I think that top 10 is clean out of the running. That was just that snap coming up on the oval as the steering lightens up, especially going through that final corner. If you just get a little too far out, a little bit too much turning angle, it just has the nose slip out underneath you, and then the rear carries a lot of pace, puts you square into the wall. Cameron Bastos climbs ahead of Tennis Buerta and now looks to catch up to Sean Rudolph up ahead. As they continue on their drive, Cameron Bastos claws himself back into the top 10. Third in the championship. Last thing he wants is to be too far down. Now, let's talk about our pros at the moment. Paul Herber, Jakob pull into the pits. Jason Krinkers up into first of the pros. Daniel Gilding currently holding second in the pros. Third overall. Looking to try and put pressure on this Aston Martin. Yeah. Now, Jason is going to try and run a little bit of a long game by the looks of it as we get to the 25-minute mark in this 45-minute race. He's trying to make his way through as we get for the reports that George Reyes unfortunately had a bit of a problem. Let's take a look at this. George Reyes battling out against Werner Skuman. Contact against the two. A little bit of door-to-door rubbing. And that's a nose turn round. Werner Skuman comes on by. And unfortunately for George Reyes, not ideal circumstances. Going and having the rear clip there. And loses out the drive. That's Joshua Syme, who's gone and lost the rear end of his car. And not going to be happy with that one. He falls down the order and losing out a lot more pace. So Werner Skuman, after that little bit of contact, now needs to look to his mirrors. Jacques Ever keeps the pressure on the back of him. Trying to see what's going to work out in his favour. Paul Herber coming out of the pits. Duncan Roderick, Dirk Herber, Martin van Veek all into pit lane as well. Along with Jaco Kutzer with some work done to his car. Looking to try and fight his way through. So a couple of drivers out there needing some serious work, some serious pace. But who is going to have the run? Sean Rudolph getting past Duncan Roderick. Duncan losing out some more positions on the run. We'll see the battle up ahead as he did spot our pro leaders making their way through. Jason and Sergei Sarkov. 7 seconds ahead. Michael Donaldson opens up the gap. Leader of our Pro-Am field, Martin van Veek on exit gets a penalty as we see Sergei Sarkov in the background. Gets it out of shape. He brings himself back in to drive as well. So not an easy time for the Astons here. But what a drive for Michael Donaldson, who looks to win his first race and looks to try and battle his way back. Unfortunately, I don't think he's going to be sitting in the Pro-Am field with a 7-second gap to the likes of Jason Krinkers and Daniel Gilding in the Pro division as it stands. Cameron Bastos gets climbed past Duncan Roderick and once again pouring his way up into that top 15. Let's see how it's all going to work out in the running order. Stephen Cakebread lying fourth in the Pro-Am field with Sean Rudolph. Honor Kraus holds on to second place. Neil Strobel holds on to third. Michael Donaldson into the pits. Now the question is the likes of Honor Kraus for Team Tryhard going to pull into the pits, or is he going to keep it pushing that little bit harder? Well, not up to the line as yet. He will get notified that Donaldson's in the pits along with Neil Strobel, who looks to fight it out and make his way through. He's currently sitting third in the Pro-Am division. Dives into pit lane for the undercut as likes of Honor Kraus is going to go for the overcut here. Let's see if it works out in his favor. Daniel Gilding fights up against the side of Jason Krinkers. Beautiful, beautiful commitment to the inside line, and both drivers going and fighting it out. I want to go back a little bit there because take a look at the commitment needed for Daniel Gilding to make that pass happen. He hunts the inside, stays there all the way through despite Jason putting the squeeze on him of note. The commitment to stay on that inside to get the braking to work out in his favor does get it hooked in, and we do see Jason diving into the pits, but man oh man, well done to Daniel to hang in there on just sure will. Stephen Cakebread trying to fight for position now as he sees the likes of Sean Rudolph trying to come out, and Martin van Veek will have a drive-through penalty, but it is going to be Rudolph dives up on the inside line, late under braking. Stephen Cakebread tried his luck, couldn't get that pass to work out in his favour, and it's Sean Rudolph who takes over third in the Pro-Am division and continues on the drive. Donaldson will hold on to second. Honor Cross holds on to first place. Jason Krinkers into the pits. Daniel Gilding, Sergei Sarkov will continue to hold on to first and second on the pros, with Werner Swart trying to close up the gap to Jason Krinkers and hoping to get that pass done. Cameron DeBastos looked towards the inside of Stephen Cakebread. Couldn't quite get that pass hooked in. We'll have to wait a little bit longer. The THT car fights against Stephen Cakebread, who is unyielding at the moment and looks to try and put pressure on the new driver, Sean Rudolph, at the moment, who has put on a stellar show as he continues on the drive. Jason Krinkers coming out of the pits will filter right behind the likes of Werner Skuman and slots in right between the likes of Jacques Ever, who will be trying to monitor his way through. So Skuman's taken a good drive out there and continues on. Mon van Veek here running into a bit of a problem. Let's quickly take a look what happened to the SBR McLaren driver as Dino Machai was on the back of him. And Mon van Veek running 23rd, late on the brakes. Ooh, too late. And misses out that brake marker by a good margin. Sees Honor Kraus come on by and say thank you very much on that one. But does lose a lot of time on the run through. Cameron DeBastos clearing Stephen Cakebread, now looks to try and get past Sean Rudolph, and this is where Sean's got a bit of a problem, because Cameron DeBastos is going to be that wrecking ball and pull Cakebread along during the course of the race. Mon van Veek into pit lane. Jaco Kutza getting some work done to his car as well, as drivers continue on to fight it out with less than 10 minutes left of this race. Still plenty to go, and taking a look at our pit stops, because our top three are the only drivers that haven't done a pit stop. Daniel Gilding, Sergei Sarkov, and Arno Kraus continue to try and make their way through. Arno Kraus leading out the Pro-Am. Daniel Gilding leading out the pros. Look to try and overcut the rest of the field. Not going to be an easy time there. Jason Krink is fighting out with the W2W driver of George Reyes at the moment, who continues to put the pressure on and see where it's going to work out in his favor. It's going to be a tough time out there. Many of the drivers just trying to see what is going to be the big picture here. What do they need to do to make it work out in their favor? And where are they going to come out? Duncan Roderick keeps pressure on Tiernis Buerta. So come barreling down the pit straight. Tiernis Buerta in the Porsche goes and leads up against Team Tryhard Racing. Duncan Roderick's Porsche. And great to see everyone throwing down the gauntlet, seeing what's going to work. Arno Kraus into the likes of pit lane and continue on the drive. So, Lloyd's got the question of how long do drivers spend in the pit stop? Well, take a look at our pit stop times as you go through a full set of tyres put onto these cars. That is the likes of Michael Donaldson, Jacques Ever, George Reyes, all putting a set of tyres on. You could spend roughly about 30 seconds in pit lane. This is in the box. They're spending over 20 seconds trying to get themselves sorted out. And that includes having fuel put in as well. So you've got to be so careful on your pit stops. George Reyes still leads out with the fastest lap of the race on that last lap at 23.4, which is insanely quick on the run. Donaldson trying to break away from Werner Swart as it stands up. Werner Swart out in the Pro Division, third in class. Sees Sergei Sarkov into pit lane. Arno Kraus tumbles down the order as Sean Rudolph and Stephen Cakebread take over second and third of the run. Arno Kraus will be leaving pit lane. He will go out into sixth in class, 18th overall behind Leon Engelbrecht, who is currently 17th overall, 12th in the pro class. Doug Herber, his own teammate, looks to put the pressure on. Sergei Sarkov still in pit lane and will be just taking a look, seeing how close the likes of Werner Swart's going to be, as Michael Donaldson is slowly but surely pulling him along and going to be causing a little bit of chaos here. Stephen Cakebread going and letting Loke Randabell come through And now we see Cameron Bastos keeps pressure on Sean Rudolph. Now, for Sean, this is where you get a little bit of a lift, let the pros come by, sweep into the slipstream, pull yourself along. Or if you got the pace, let it work out in your favor. Both running 124s. Sean Rudolph on the last lap was a little bit quicker than the likes of Cameron Bastos. So the two of them can just easily pull each other along till the end of the race. And slowly but surely, Cameron can try and reclaim some positions as it stands. Daniel Gilding into pit lane. And now this is going to be a big move. Michael Donaldson trying to break away from Werner Swart, who holds second place in the pros. Werner Skuman, third in the pros. Donaldson leads out the Pro-Am. Sean Rudolph is second in the Pro-Ams as he gets overtaken by Cameron Bastos. And third of the Pro-Ams is Stephen Catebread as he continues on the drive. Unfortunately, Joshua Syme, after having a bit of a problem early on in the race, is down into 8th position, but battles against Doe Herber as it stands. Doe got a DNF for Heat 1. Heat 2 looks to be a top 10 for him as he puts pressure on Honor Kraus in that 6th position. That BMW not having an easy time, and Joshua going to look to mount the pressure onto the back of Doe. Not going to be having an easy one as it stands, but the three will battle out for 6th, 7th, and 8th position as it's late on the brakes. Oh, big send for Joshua, nearly into the side of Honor Kraus. Doe Herber with a quick look to the mirrors, and I gotta give it up to Doe there. He must have been so looking to that left-hand side and gone, oh my heavens, here comes a torpedo, and got out of the way quite quickly there. Great situational awareness. And I think for Honor Kraus, if he sees how close that was to pretty much seeing his afterlife come a lot quicker than planned, he would be going and stressing. Werner Skuman fighting against Daniel Gilding as they hold on for 2nd and 3rd. Werner Swart leads out the pro field. Donaldson leads out the entirety of the field and first in class. But take a look. Werner Skuman keeps the pressure on Daniel Gilding. Now these two had a fight in Heat 1. Is it going to be a repeat for Heat 2? As we do see Werner Skuman locks in the inside, trying to make it work. He's been comfortable here all race long and does get ahead of Daniel Gilding under braking. Beautiful pass. Werner was more comfortable every single time in to off the oval, holds the inside line, goes for the pass. Daniel Gilding had no answer there. Had to wait up, and that's cost him a bit of time. And allowed Sharks Ever to close up that distance as well. Sean Rudolph pulling himself along. Sees Cameron Bastos ahead of him. Low Gradamel a little bit further down through the field. And now this is interesting because Sean Rudolph, second of the Pro-Ams, doesn't have to fight Cameron Bastos. He pulled himself along as he's clear of Stephen Catebread by a good margin at this point. So taking a look at our class positions, Werner Swart, Werner Skuman, and Daniel Gilding hold on to the top 3 with Sharks Ever trying to close up into that top 4. Michael Ronson, Sean Rudolph, Stephen Catebread, Dennis Berta, and Duncan Roderick continue on their drive. So everyone dealing with the pace, trying to see what works out in their favor. However, it is a tough fight indeed as Sharks Ever continues to look left and right at Daniel Gilding, who's not getting the easiest to drive in the car. He's constantly fighting left and right at the moment, trying to see what works out in his favor. Sharks Ever closes up to Werner Swart, and the Altered Carbon Racing now fights out against the Angry Panda of the Pandacity Esports team. Werner Swart, who is no stranger to getting his elbows out, will look to defend as much as possible, as we do see a little bit of a side swipe against Walt. Werner Skuman runs out a little bit high here at Indianapolis, and seeing how close he can get to the top, as it's going to be a late on the brakes. He second guesses. Werner Swart was first to the corner, didn't want to throw it down the inside, rather waited out, try to close the distance between the two of them as they continue on the drive. Looking behind, Daniel Gilding and Sharks Ever still keep pressure on, but it is a fight out for first in the pros as Werner Swart and Werner Skuman continue to brawl it out. The BMW just not quite having the legs to fight out against Porsche, but just getting his elbows wide enough to fight it out. He's going to keep on the outside, hope for the sweep across. Here comes Werner Skuman up on the inside. The Porsche does get the pass done, and Werner Swart tries to get the drive through. Unfortunately, not going to be the easiest one as Werner Skuman stops it dead on the apex. Daniel Gilding along with Jacques Ever, but take a look. 5th place, George Reyes hangs in the balance as well, looking to try and close up on his championship, a top 5, despite getting that little bit of a spin round. He is still looking to close up to these two, and as we get closer to the 40-minute mark, drivers will be starting to stress how hard do they need to push, how far do they need to go to keep it going around this very, very tight circuit of Indianapolis Roval. So still lots and lots of pace needed from each of the drivers to play into effect here. Daniel Gilding once again defending the SBR driver of Jacques Ever at the moment, and it's still going to be a hard press situation as they continue on the drive. Another driver out there, Tim Penny, we saw damage early on for his car, and the Prestata Nomad team keeping on the circuit. Once again, well done. Good to see drivers, despite problems, still continue to fight on and see it through to the end, which I love to point out, the Prestata Nomad team being one of those drivers. Noah Hendricks, who had that disconnect at the start of the race, he's still out there pushing as hard as he can. He's got Etienne Swart still out there trying to see it through. Martin Finfake, Jaco Kutzer, Willem Pino, WJ Wilson, and Steven Vessels, unfortunately out of the race and will not be seeing it through to the end, which is a mighty blow for their championships. 40 minutes gone by and 5 minutes left of the race. Donaldson leads out the field by so little to Werner Skuman, who's 0.6 of a second. This is going to be an interesting battle because it's Pandacity Esports against the Omnius Gaming driver. Now, we've got Michael Donaldson. He's been sitting with the THT drivers trying to figure out where can he get the pace to work on this car. But the two drivers have got a bit of a old history to one another, and we have got a bit of a problem further behind. Jacques Ever and Daniel Gilding come to blows, and that was into turn 1. What on earth happened? So Daniel Gilding trying to keep it all together, and Jacques Ever, oh, big impact. Jacques under braking, didn't slow the car down enough, plows into the back of Gilding, and that is a lot of damage to his car. Daniel Gilding has got a fair amount of damage to his car. We also saw smoke up ahead, and that was from this man over here, Noah Hendricks, getting it out of shape just before everyone came through. Clipped the curb, oh, the just rear. Snap, slow slide, and that was all she wrote, really. He was able to get a turn right. Beautiful pirouette to pull it back into check. But Daniel Gilding, after fighting it out, Jacques Ever having that little bit of contact onto the back of him, will be hurting his way to the line yet again. The rear of that Ferrari getting checked by another car. Werner Skuman looks to try and take overall lead of the race as he fights up against Michael Donaldson as they charge their way through. Donaldson holds the outside line. He looks to middle. Werner Skuman going to try look around the outside. It's going to be late under the brakes to see what works out here. Donaldson really trying to sink it in a little bit deep there. But Skuman right hot on his heels. Werner Swart, George Reyes, Jacques Ever in 5th. Daniel Gilding comes across the line. He is currently in 6th with Sergei Sarkov, Jakob van Lith, Paul Herbert, Jason Grinkers. Rounds out our top 10 as it stands. Loic Randall getting past Sean Rudolph as he chases down Cameron de Bastos in class position. Stephen Cakebread trying to close up a gap to Sean Rudolph, who currently holds on to 2nd in the Pro-Am field. Late under braking, Skuman hunts down left, right, trying to see what is going to be the advantage here, and not having an easy time as Donaldson, super defensive over the apexes, forces the Pandacity driver to figure out what is the big plan here. What is going to be the big move that's needed this time round as we go back to vintage Skuman. Went for the inside. It worked a few times this time around. Not an easy pass. Does hook on the inside of Donaldson. Drag race on the way through. Not an easy run. So it's nose to tail for the drivers, and Skuman once again brawls it out against Donaldson as they come across the line. Skuman close to pit wall. Donaldson trying to hold him close to that pit wall as well, as it's going to be Skuman looking for a deep in on the inside. He goes late on the brakes. Can he make it work? He does get it done, but it is going to be Donaldson. Oh, a little bit of shoulder check with the two, and both are off. Both are off. And that is Skuman trying to get the car going. Impact against the two, and unfortunately, not ideal run for him. Skuman down into fifth. Shocks gets the pass. Donaldson down into third. Has got a bit of carnage between the two of them. George Rez and Werner Swart will take over first and second of the race. And that, unfortunately, was too close of racing between them. And someone had to give a bit of understeer coming in from the car. Bit of contact, a shoulder tab from both. And that was all she needed to flip the race on its head. Duncan Roderick trying to close up to Tiernas Puerta as they continue on the drive. Oh, a little bit close to one another as Tiernas Puerta holds the defense against Duncan Roderick. Stephen Cakebread up ahead tries to make his way through, but Werner Skuman is going to be in pain at the moment. Not only damage to the front and the rear of his car, but a drive-through penalty to boot, as he got a 4x contact point as well during the course of that, as we on to our final lap of the race, and it is all to play for at the top. Altered Carbon Racing up against George Rez. George got the win. Can he make it work here again? Heat 1 was a bit wild. Heat 2 is going to be even worse for the drivers, as it's a hop over the curb. Werner Swart looking to try and get his first victory in the pros. Can he do it? He holds the inside line as it's George Rez around the outside. Sends it around the out. Can he make it work? Side by side they go. The BMW trying to hang on desperately at the moment over the apexes, but it is George Rez who gets a lot of drive through, gets the pass done. Werner Swart tries to fight it back as they start to aim to come back on the oval. It's going to be a long lost shot. Absolutely pushing left and right as Werner Swart hammers down, trying to get that rear to be more compliant underneath him. But George Rez has opened up full taps. He wants this to work. Out the final corner, heading towards the start-finish line. George Rez gets the win in the 45-minute Heat 2. Werner Swart up onto the podium. He is quite happy with that. Second place, Michael Donaldson, first of the Pro-Am field, gets third place overall. Shocks Ever gets third in the pros, followed by Werner Skuman, Daniel Gilding, Sergei Sarkov, Jaco van der Lith comes across the line. Paul Herbert into that top 10. He's got to be still happy with that one. Jason Kreckers rounds out our top 10. Cameron Bastos in 11th position with Loic Randall right behind him. Sean Rudolph will take second of the Pro-Am. Stephen Cakebread has fought it out down to the wire. He will take third in the Pro-Am. Right behind him, Tiernas Puerta in fourth. Duncan Roderick will hold on to fifth in the Pro-Am. Young Engelbrecht comes across the line in 17th position, followed by Joshua Syme. Doe Herber comes across the line 13 positions up from where he started, with Arno Kraus right behind him. Willem Buerta will battle his way through and come across the line in 21st position in a car that he had no setup before this race. Ran out of fuel in Heat 1, got it across the line in Heat 2. Neil Strobel on his debut run finished up in 22nd position, 9th in class for the Pro-Am. Dino Machai comes across the line with Wesley Lewin seeing it through to the end for the Team CSA. Tim Penny, Noah Hendricks, Etienne Swart, Martin Van Veek, Jaco Kutzer, Willem Pinard, WJ Wilson, and Stephen Vessels, unfortunately not able to see it through to the end. What a drive, folks. What a drive here in our second heat of the evening and our final heat of the evening, as we're waiting for the results to come up for round 3 of the RaceFace.Pro iRacing GT3 Championship. And what a drive it was. What an amazing race it was. Some heart-in-mouth moments by our drivers. all in all, though, some great racing start to finish. And honestly, been some interesting times. That being said, it's still going to be a close one indeed for the drivers, as we will be taking a look at the results coming up shortly. We'll see drivers going and really putting their way through. So, as we wait to get our championship, well, as we get to our results for our Pro-Am, still waiting for it all to kick up and come onto screen as the last of our drivers trying to circulate, get themselves across the line. And there it is, Michael Donaldson getting the win in the Pro-Am. Sean Rudolph, second place, followed by Stephen Cakebread, Turnus Buerta, Duncan Roderick, Joshua Syme, Doug Huber, Honor Haas, Neil Strobel, Dina Machai, Wesley Lewin, Etienne Swart, Martin van Wyk, Jaco Kotzem, Willem Pienaar rounds out our top 15 in the Pro-Am. Looking at our pros for that feature race, it was George Reyes taking the win by 0.2 of a second ahead of Werner Swart of Alta Carbon. Sharks Ever taking third place. Daniel Gilding, Sergei Sarkov, Jakob van Lith, Paul Herbert, Jason Krinkers, Cameron de Bassos in 9th position. 10th, Loic Randebel, Vernon Skimmer, Jan Engelbrecht, Willem Buerta, Tim Penny, Noah Hendricks, WJ Wilson, and Stephen Vessels round out the pack. That being said, we're going to take a look at possibly just a provisional standing of where everyone is in the points. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to get that tonight, as there is a lot of work to be done in the background. So, good to see how the drivers make their way through and see how it's all turned out. But that being said, we're just going to see if we can get a couple of drivers to come and have a chat to us in the booth, give us a bit of an idea of how it was all going. And definitely a tough time. I see Werner Skimmer going and writing, if I can ask for drivers to please remain calm. I know it's under heated situations we get a little bit excited, but things do happen during the course of the race. So just a reminder to everyone, please just keep things calm, keep things clean. We don't want to have any issues going forward. So, that being said, let's see if we can bring some of our drivers come and have a chat to us after their first heat, well, their second heat here tonight. And let's see if we can bring in the likes of third place during the course of this race for the Pro-Am. Let's bring in Stephen Cakebread for his chat with us. Stephen Cakebread, welcome to the commentary box. And man, oh man, what a race for you. Fighting out for the podium and finally locking in a top 3. How are you feeling after that one?
Well, thanks, man. Yeah, it was a little bit hectic. There was like quite a bit of carnage, which I actually made it through. So that kind of helped me. So, yeah, nice. Thanks, buddy.
And it was a very interesting race because you were fighting out with Sean Rudolph for some time. Then Turnus Buerta joined in the party, Duncan Roderick as well. Take us through a 30-minute race. How was it in planning, and then suddenly a 45-minute with a mandatory pit stop? How does that throw a spanner in the works for your planning?
Well, not really. I did 2 lobby races. It's just the fuel. I kind of worked out about 20 minutes worth of fuel for race 2. I thought I would have a little bit less fuel because we are putting in tires, so I don't want to add less fuel and wait a bit too long for the tires. In race 1, I just basically filled up what I thought would be the entire amount, which was about 60 liters, and yeah, and I just made it. So that was quite cool, yeah.
Well, still a great race indeed, and honestly, good to see you finally snatching up that podium. It's been a good couple of years to finally get there.
Yeah.
But, well, I got you here. Is there anything you want to say to the sponsors, to the teams and drivers out on the circuit that was joining you? And most importantly, I think you agree with me on this one, the amazing petrol heads we have out in the virtual grandstands.
Yes, no, thanks. Well, I don't really know who they are in the virtual grandstands, but for everybody who obviously does support, thank you. It's a nice series to be in. I'm glad to finally be here. Yeah, not the fastest driver, but I tried to be consistent, and yeah, so that was quite cool. Thanks.
Oh, absolutely great stuff. Stephen Cakebread finally getting locked in for that third place and done a really, really good job. Good to see him out there and securing in a spot. We're going to bring in our second place in Heat 1 for our pro animus, Joshua Sam. Joshua, welcome to the commentary box. Heat 2 wasn't quite yours to play for, but Heat 1 was a proper charge. How are you feeling after this?
Good from the first race. I think it went well. I maximised what I could really. Second race, I don't know. We'll see what happens after the race, but I'm not overly happy with how it went. But it is what it is.
Unfortunately, one of those things, but it seemed like you had the Aston Martin on rails. What was your game plan heading into this race, considering we've got a split heat and considering it's 30 minutes and then 45 minutes? It tends to throw the cat amongst the pigeon, and considering you fighting for the championship against Arno Kraus, and this brings him a little closer to you than planned.
Yeah, so I think the strategy for the first race, the 30-minute race, was the same as the race at Red Bull Ring, where it was just maximising what I can out of it and just making sure I can put in hot laps after hot laps. The 45-minute was the one where I was unsure whether to underfuel the car and then take fuel and tyres or just take tyres. I ended up just taking tyres, so I was running a bit heavier towards the end of the race. Like I had an extra 5 laps worth of fuel because I was unsure how much fuel I would need. So I overfueled it as well, which obviously wouldn't have helped things. So yeah, we learn now. I now know. I think it's probably better to underfuel and then take fuel at the pit stop, because I don't think you lose that much time doing that, and I think you'll gain that back in being lighter in the first stint.
Well, it was still absolutely great racing to see you out there and seeing you battle it out for the Snails Pace Racing team. Anything you'd like to say to everyone out on the virtual grandstands cheering on the Snails, and also going and for the drivers and teams that you fought it out with during the course of this race? And most important, with our sponsors coming to the party cheering you on as well.
Yeah, just thanks to everyone for all the support and to the sponsors. I say it every time, but the league's a great league. So if you're watching and you think that you're interested, I would definitely speak to Cameron and see if it's something for you. The other teams racing, they're all great guys. Incidents happen on track, so I'm not holding it against anyone. It's just disappointing, but overall the racing's great between everyone and it's quite respectful as well. So, and then thanks to you, Stephen, for commentating as usual.
Oh, absolutely great stuff, and always a pleasure, Joshua, to chat to you. Looking forward to chatting with you at Sebring a little bit later on. So good to see Joshua Sam having a good run and scoring a good valuable points for his championship. That being said, let's bring in another one of our Pro-Am drivers here tonight, as we are missing George Reyes and Werner Swart. Unfortunately, we're going to bring in Michael Donaldson, who got a victory out in the top. Michael Donaldson, welcome to the commentary box. And man, oh man, what a drive. First in Heat 1, you got a win for yourself, but a battle out for overall race win here tonight. You must be a bit worn out, that's for certain.
Safe to say, I mean, for race 1, I'm glad for that. I had a bit of a spin, but overall it wasn't that bad. Race 2, I mean, straight off the bat, I managed to get around the outside of third and then around the inside of second, and then Loic, who was in first, just lost it, and I was able to just run away. I just wanted to keep the laps consistent and then just pull some sort of gap, and then I was waiting for a big gap to open up for me to pit into. And the cold tires coming out of the pits was an interesting one, to say the least. Had to fend off Vanner there for a while, and then other Vanner towards the end.
Well, it was still a great race indeed, and definitely going and putting in the fight. well, with the game plan, honestly, going and changing things up from Lamar, had a little bit of a problem. Indianapolis working out in your favor. What's the game plan heading into next 2 weeks' time, where you're going to be heading out to a race where it's going to be at Sebring?
Well, Sebring is not one of my strong tracks, but I can definitely make it one. And the goal today was the podium. That was the overall goal for the amount of effort I put into Indy, at least. And the win was definitely there. I mean, it's a rough way to end, but at the end of the day, the goal was achieved, and I'm grateful for that. I'm looking at the positives of this one.
Oh, good to say. Once you see the green, you got to see the check-in. You got to keep your eyes forward and not in the review. That being said, anything you would like to say to all our sponsors, to the drivers out there, to all the teams, and most importantly, all our petrol heads out in the virtual grandstands?
Oh, thank you to RaceFace and the sponsors for making this championship possible. I mean, it's such an honor to actually race amongst guys in your own country and just have this level of competition around. It's truly amazing. And thank you to everyone who sits and watches the stream, or everyone in the race as well. I thoroughly appreciate the support, and the support for the league and the drivers. Oh, thank you, everyone.
Absolutely great stuff. Michael Donaldson taking the victory in the Pro-Am field and showing what he can do. Heading in 2 weeks' time, going to be battling it out on the beautiful track of Sebring. That being said, let's bring in a driver that's going to be happy for his third place and scoring some points for the championship. Jacques Evans. Jacques, welcome to the commentary box. And, well, he too worked in your favor. Third place. How are you feeling after that one?
How's it going, Steve? No, what a interesting race, I must say. After I had a bit of contact on lap 2 and actually had to go and pit, and never thought that after coming out and pushing as hard as I could get the podium spot. What a race.
With that being said, I mean, let's talk about your fight that you had with Daniel Gilding for a long time. Unfortunately, contact was what put the race to bed between you two, but it looked like you had each other's number. Where were you feeling that the Ferrari was getting the jump on the Mustang, and where did you feel that the Mustang was getting the jump on the Ferrari?
Well, definitely out of the last corner to the main straight, he had the jump on me there every time. Mustang was struggling there with traction. Lap 6, I almost lost it there, almost into the wall, but I luckily saved it. But yeah, that's where he got the jump on me. But then when we came through turn 3 and 4, I definitely closed the gap, and there was always a chance to go 5 and 6, but there was never space to go for a move over there. So yeah, that was quite an interesting battle.
Absolutely great stuff. And now that you're scoring a bit of points for the championship, you came in 5th in the championship into this race. You're going to be a little bit higher now. What's the game plan heading into Sebring in 2 weeks' time?
Now the game plan is to put as much seat timing as possible, get the practice in so that we can get better results. I feel that win's still coming. It needs to come. I thought maybe tonight I'll have a chance, but let's take it to the next one and see what I can do.
Absolutely great stuff. And before I let you go to enjoy the celebration with the SBR team, because you did have a new set of drivers coming in and racing with us tonight from Team SBR. Anything you want to say to the drivers, the teams, to all the sponsors, and most importantly, to everyone out in the virtual grandstands?
Well, first of all, I want to thank all our sponsors, because without the sponsors, nothing will be possible. To all our drivers, to all our admin members, thanks for being there and showing up. I think that's what makes the action. And yeah, I think SBR that came tonight had a few more guys on the grid, and they didn't get the best results, but they'll definitely be back next week fighting harder at Sebring. And then to everybody in the virtual stands, we do this all for you guys to enjoy and have a look at it. So thanks for coming and supporting our streams, and we're looking forward to seeing all of you back at Sebring.
Absolutely great stuff. Jacques Ever of Team SBR getting a good haul of points here tonight for the team and looking to fight their way forward. Last but not least, we're going to bring in Cameron de Bastos, our admin for the likes of RaceFace.Pro iRacing division. And Cameron, it's been a race of note here tonight. Not quite the podium that you wanted, but some fierce action that you had to deal with. How are you feeling after the race?
Yeah, good evening, Steve, and good evening, everybody out there in the virtual grandstand. Yeah, it's been quite a race. I knew I wasn't going to get back on podium. The Aston just wasn't performing as I wanted it to around here. But I was happy with the first race results. Top five was actually more than I expected. Quite surprised I got a top 10 at the end for pro. So overall, actually, so I was kind of shocked about that. But otherwise, yeah, second race was one probably to forget. But yeah, otherwise, I'm very happy with what's been transpiring this season. I mean, halfway through the season already, and it just flew by, and kind of enjoying it.
Well, with that being said, we're heading over to Sebring in 2 weeks' time. We did see the reversal of a grid of the top 11 for this one. Can we expect any out-the-bag situations that may possibly happen for upcoming races, including next week's LMP2 and hypercar racing, which is still open for everyone to join and be a part of the iRacing fun?
Um, well, there is a bit of a big surprise coming up for the final, well, for two of the rounds, I believe. Well, you never know what the prediction will be regarding weather, but one of the tracks will be quite flooded, one can say. Especially look at the calendar, it's going to be quite a wet one, is what is forecasted. But weather always changes so far, you can't see so far up in the future. And I believe somewhere around the line, there might be a sneaky little grid reversal that's going to surprise everybody. I'm not going to give away too much, but it is going to be quite a fun one that even it's going to really test the guys and how they manage each other's pace and how they're going to do that.
Absolutely great stuff. Well, before I let you go and enjoy some of the celebrations with the drivers and with the team, anything you would like to say to all our sponsors, to all the drivers and teams that are here tonight, and most importantly, I think you agree with me, everyone out in the virtual grandstands?
Well, yeah, you pretty much touched on it there, Steve. Our sponsors, really thank you to Rhino Utility for backing us and being able, allowing us to run these the sessions as well as the races itself. To all our drivers, thank you very much for driving and well, racing in general, and for taking us and testing some of these new formats that we're currently having. And then, of course, similar to Cave, EG Vault coming on board and helping us, well, just help sponsoring this event here. And of course, Team SPR, we saw them tonight, a few extra drivers out there. Thanks again to them. Gave me a bit of a good fight there. One of them, one point, one of the new drivers. And then also Virtual Motorhead, thanks again for all there. And finally, can't not say thank you to well, THT Productions as well as you, Steve. Might sound a bit, what can you say, full of myself or whatever, or just team being on the driving team of that team, but without them and without you, Steve, this would not be possible. And yeah, finally, I know I say a lot of ums, but thanks to everybody in the virtual grandstands. Thank you very much for everyone watching and cheering us on, watching this back, seeing the comments and feedback coming back from you guys actually helps us point in the right direction. So thanks again to you guys. Really, really appreciate it. So yeah, thanks again.
Absolutely great stuff. Cameron Bastos of Team Heap Together, finishing up his race and looking to fight it out for the championship. That being said, folks, it has been an exciting one here tonight with some of the most exciting of races. Drivers having to push that little bit harder, trying to fight their way through here at a beautiful Indianapolis. But we got to say farewell to Indy and look forward to 2 weeks' time, heading out to Sebring out in America. We're looking forward to seeing how that's going to work out. And we've got the reports of possibly some weather conditions might be thrown into the mix. So keep an eye on the lights, keep an eye on the racing, because it's about to get wild out there. And also take a look over here at RaceFace.Pro. Tomorrow we're going to be kicking off with our LMU Championship Hypercar, LMP3, and GT3s all look to take to the circuit and fight their way around the brand new release circuit on Le Mans Ultimate Silverstone. And we look forward to seeing the start of the championship, Season 3. And that is right here at RaceFace.Pro. Plus, entries are open for ACC Season 24. If you're in for some ACC GT3 racing, join up on our Discord and be a part of the action. Go and qualify in our grading to put yourself in the right class and get signed up with all the racing. If you want to join us here for some more racing here at RaceFace.Pro, head over to SimGrid and join up. Follow us there, be a part of the show. Once again, subscribe, hit that bell notification icon, leave a like, and let us know what was your favorite part of the race. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you right here at THC Productions, right here at RaceFace.Pro. Ladies and gentlemen, like always, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, everybody.